Hi guys, you guys are having a sub because I have to be off campus for the morning. So I'm looking at your calendar right here. Of course, you'll see that on the whiteboard that you guys are doing 4.1G for your classwork, and that's your homework as well. And you're actually going to be taking a group quiz. What that means is very simply, you guys will be able to get into your groups that you normally play Jeopardy with. Get away from other groups though, kind of like find your own corner of the room. And all 3 or 4 of you will be taking the group quiz together, and then you'll staple it together, and I could grade any one of your quizzes. That means it doesn't matter if yours is on the bottom, I could choose that one. So in other words, everybody's going to be working together. You're all going to turn in your own paper, but they'll be stapled together, and everybody in the group gets the same grade on that quiz. So it's really important you guys agree and work together and double check everybody's work. Okay, so now I'm going to give you the classwork lesson, which is really going to be good to help you with this quiz because it's very similar to what you're going to be doing on your group quiz. And it's our second attempt at this. You guys see the title says more on lines of best fit. That means the previous lesson, 4.1F, was just like this, and hopefully since you graded your homework, you got a good idea whether you know how to do this or not. All right, so Camilo and his family are taking a long road trip. The graph shows the distance and the time. So obviously this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. You can almost see that it looks like a line, but it says using a ruler, draw a line of best fit through the data points that captures the trend. So guys, clearly 0, 0 is a good point. Now, I'm just going to lay my ruler on here before I draw anything. A line of best fit tries to touch as many points as you can, so you can't touch them all. So what I suggest you do is if the end point here is a nice, easy to identify point like this one is, like it hits at 8, 480, and that kind of lines up with everything else, which this one does, that's my line that I'm going to use. You always want to have at least one nice, easy to identify point, but look, this almost hits all of them, so it's not only a line of best fit, it's a pretty accurate line as well. Well, again, there's a dot, there's a dot. This is why I need those 2 dots, is because I'm going to estimate the slope. You know that's m, and you know that's b of our line. So what's my rise, and what's my run? Well, we go up from 0 to 480. Well, that's my 480 is my rise. And my run is what? 8, right? 480 miles in 8 hours. Now, if you actually divide that, you can use a calculator, and you'll end up with probably some speed. 480 divided by 8. Well, what does that mean? 480 miles in 8 hours is really 60 miles per hour. So the slope is 60. The y-intercept, where does it hit the y-axis? Well, the y-intercept is 0. Okay. Write a prediction function. Now, guys, this word function, another word for this, and I want you to write this, is equation. So anytime you see the word function, think equation for the data set. Well, if I know m is 60 and I know b is 0, well, your equation is going to be very simply y equals m x plus b, which is 0, so I don't really need to write anything. So this is my equation that represents the data set. What does the slope represent in context? What does this rise and run represent in context? Well, it's that over that, also known as miles per hour. That's what this means, that over that, miles over hours. What does the y-intercept represent in context? Well, what does that point right there represent in context? It represents that at 0 hours, how far have we gone? 0 miles. So we are going 0 hours and 0 miles. Now this one is predict how far Camilo and his family will have driven after 10 hours. Well, see, this graph doesn't go up to 10, but we can assume the line does, but we can't really just guess. Sorry about the focus. But we have an equation, guys, so you're going to use this equation to help you predict. So if they tell you it's 10 hours, isn't 10 hours the x value? All you do is plug in 10 for x. So y equals 10 60 times 10. That's the number of hours, so equals what? 60 times 10 is 600. So how far will it go? 600 miles. Okay. No problem, right? Good. Number 2, second problem. If you want to stay tuned here. All right. Scatter plot below shows the weight in pounds of a person who is on a strict diet. So strict diet means hopefully we're letting the weight go down, which you can see it clearly is after this many weeks. So let's start with our line of best fit. And what's that point right there called? You should have all said y-intercept. Now let's draw a line. Now that's too steep, that's not steep enough. So make sure it lines up and then pick any point that you can imagine. Now look at this. If I connect it to the end point, is that a pretty good representation? Probably not, really. Maybe. How about there? Yeah, that looks good. Okay. So now, we did part A. Let's do part B. Let's do the slope and y-intercept. Let's start with the y-intercept. That's the easy part. The y-intercept is the easy part because it's right there. So the y-intercept, B, is 180. How about the slope? Well, clearly it's going down and right. So now, starting here at 180, you go from 180, let's just choose this point here, the end point. Goes from 180 down to what? So from 180 to 130 is down 50, isn't it? Let me do that again. From 180 to 130, right here, is down. 180 to 130 is down 50. That's my rise. And then my run is 15. Okay. Now that's just a fraction. Don't worry about it that it's just not going to be a nice neat number. If I punch that into a calculator, you're going to get a decimal. 50 divided by 15. And I know it's negative. 3.33333, but let's just reduce that fraction. Aren't these both divisible by 5? So what's my slope? 5 goes into 50 10 times, so it's negative 10. 5 goes into 15 3 times, so it's negative 10 thirds. There's my slope. And we've seen slope as a fraction many times. Okay, write a prediction function. Remember that means equation. So guys, you have M, you have B. Let's go ahead and write an equation. Y equals M X plus B, 180. What does the slope represent in context? Let's see, you lose certain weight in a certain amount of weeks. So you are weight lost per week. What does the y-intercept represent in context? What does that mean? That means after 0 weeks, we're only just before we even began the diet, the very, very first second of the diet, we weighed 180. So at week 0, weight is 180. And I'm just abbreviating here to save room. Last question, and then we're done. Predict, and let me bring this arrow down. Predict the person's weight after 16 weeks. Okay? So 16 weeks means that's your what value? X, you just said out loud. Well done. So y equals negative 10 over 3 times whatever x is, and they're telling us that it is 16 plus 180. Now I know this looks yucky, but I told you you can use a calculator. So go ahead and simplify this, but you really shouldn't need to. What's 10 times 16? Isn't that negative 160 over 3 plus 180? Now let's see if 160 is divisible by 3. 160 divided by 3. It's not going to be. It's going to be a decimal. But let's write that decimal. Let's actually just use that number, 53.3 repeating. So this is y equals negative 53.3 plus 180. And just simplify that. So remember, that's a negative, that's a positive, so you're really subtracting them. So it's 180 minus 53.333333 equals 126 point, let's round it, 126.7. 126.7 pounds after 16 weeks. Now there's one other thing I just want to discuss. If this continues and continues, look at this number here, 120. Let's pretend that keeps going and going. What if I, instead of put in 16 weeks, what if I put in 160, just for fun here? So let's multiply this, instead of by 16, let's do 160 weeks. So 10 times 160 equals that big number, divided by 3 equals that. So imagine, instead of being negative 53.3, it's negative 533. Well, that doesn't make sense, obviously, because you can't get to negative weight. So this trend would actually not be very linear. It would start to curve. Eventually, you have to stop losing weight, or else you die. Yes, that's correct. All right, guys, so you can actually use anything in your modules, your calculators. You're all going to need rulers and a pencil, no pen. Remember, you're stapling your quizzes together, and I get to choose anybody in that group that I want to grade, and you all get the same grade. So find your homes that you want to take your group quiz with, get your supplies ready, and then the substitute teacher will give you your quiz that you're doing now. It's due today. If you finish early, you can work on 4.1G's homework. Thanks, guys. I'll see you maybe later today.